This episode of the Barry Chronicles is proudly brought to you by Bariatric Support Australia.
Hi everybody, I'm Tash.
And I'm Damo.
And we are so excited to bring you this week's episode of the Barry Chronicles. Damo, what are we going to chat about this week?
Well, we just received a message from one of our listeners. So I'm going to read Sally Dillon messaged, commented. This was super timely as my surgery is just before Christmas. I really resonated with historical Christmases being about food and not looking up, as that's how ours were growing up. Thanks for the insights. Would love another one delving into the practicalities and feelings to be aware of over the holiday season, or something for those managing the change over this period. Because I really appreciate that question, because it was really hard for me. My first Christmas, all those first after surgery, the first birthday, the first Easter, the first Christmas, New Year's, all of it. It was so different. And we think, we know that there's going to be changes because we're having, restrictive surgery. But I don't think we are really ready for it when we haven't even talked about how we'll cope with it. And a lot of times, and you say this a lot, Tash, you don't know what you don't know until you realise you don't know it. And how true is that? Yeah. I'm going to know that you might struggle at Christmas.
I think we take it for granted. I think that we're just so excited that we're doing something that's going to hopefully change our lives. And we're probably in the headspace of, won't it be so nice to, because we're Australian, won't it be so nice to not be like sweating our asses off at Christmas quite like we were? Or won't it be nice to not be worried that like the plastic chairs that are often at, gatherings and things, would be giving me trauma.
And you can see that they've been left out in the sun too long and the plastic start and that sort of...
You know that they're a little bit warped and you're just like frightened. I mean, I've broken chairs before.
Yep.
So all those things, like we're so excited about that sometimes we can overlook how it might feel when you walk into a room full of people who are used to seeing you approach food and life in a certain way, and suddenly it's not the same anymore.
Yeah.
And I think,
especially if you're one of the ones that would cook, and you decide, this year I'm not going to, because I just don't want to put that stress on myself of, having to prepare this food. I can't even taste it. And suddenly you're not the one walking in with the amazing desserts or whatever it is that you would normally do. And I think that can be really confronting for the other people around.
So let's break this down. Both you and I believe and practice in our lives moderation.
Yep.
Both you and I believe that bariatric metabolic surgery is not about restriction forever. It is about a relearning. So please know and understand, if you're listening to this, that we believe in eating widely. We believe in living our lives. We don't believe that we should be restricting ourselves. We don't practice that in our living.
Like just last night, we've had Thai takeaway.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a family event, not a huge one, but that's what we had. We don't believe in restricting food groups.
Yeah. I personally don't believe that there is good and bad food. I believe that there's food, and it's how we apply the food to ourselves individually that can determine the outcome of how that food relationship looks in our lives. So what I think we're going to really dive into today is what that first year, that first Christmas, or that first holiday period was like for me and for Damo. So for
I
me,
think Christmas is a good one to do because it's sort of, for a lot of people, it's the biggest event of the year.
I mean, so we were living in Geelong at that time. Damo was not living in Geelong at that time. We did not spend our first Christmas post-bariatric surgery together. We didn't spend that Christmas. I didn't spend that Christmas with Damo when he had his procedure. I very vividly remember my first Christmas post-gastric bypass. I was 6 months post-op. I remember sliding into a size 16 dress that morning, and I was so freaking excited. But I also remember that I was stressed and nervous because where I was going, I was so concerned that they would feel offended because of the amount of food that I wouldn't be able to eat. I knew that they'd made allowances for the fact that I'd had surgery. I had updated them with that, but I knew that we hadn't eaten together often enough for them to realise just how small my portions were. So I had a lot of anxiety about that. I had a lot of anxiety about wanting to have things, wanting to try things that I always had. And I had already decided I'm going to have a little bit of pavlova. I'm going to have that pavlova. So yeah, I'd made that my goal. I was wondering, should I have a glass of wine? Should I not have a glass of wine? What should I do about that? And then came the actual event of arriving and seeing the amount of food and actually not feeling judgment at the hosts or at anybody, but just being actually disgusted by the amount of food.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a normal reaction in that process.
I remember going through that stage.
I believe it is a stage.
Yeah, because it's something that is so confronting. And that I don't think, well, for me, it wasn't that I was disgusted with people that were eating.
No,
it's that I was horrified with the realization of how much I would have eaten previously.
Yep, that was me. I was sitting there going, oh my God. You know, for me, I'd had nearly 6 months. Or no, I had 6 months of living that Barry life. And then Christmas came. And holy shit, I was sitting there realizing how many plates of food I used to have. I was sitting there just being disgusted with myself. The food noise was deafening that day. And I thought I was ready, but I wasn't.
Yeah. It was something that I struggled with so much, was, I guess, the anger, the grief that I had at myself.
Yeah.
For how I was. And I really just wasn't ready to deal with that. And I wasn't expecting it. And I think when it suddenly hits you in the face, especially at, a family event like Christmas, and you're trying to keep the happy, disposition. And
you don't want to bring anybody down.
You don't want to make people feel bad. And it certainly was never a oh, I'm only eating this much. And I think it really got me. And yeah, like I said, I didn't know how to deal with that, especially when you're in the middle of it and it's happening right now.
Yeah. I was very much the same. I can actually remember everything that I had on my plate that Christmas. And I remember looking up from my plate at all of the faces of all of the beautiful people that were around me and realizing that every Christmas prior to that, I'd been more concerned with what was on the plate than who was sitting there. And it brought tears to my eyes. And it still does to this day, because that is when I realized, oh my God, like that's the place that I was in with food.
Mm.
And I never, ever, ever want to be there again, ever. So it was for me, it was a really confronting day. And I was unprepared for it. I didn't realize just how I would feel in that moment. And I found it to be very, very confronting. But how did you go, Damo, with energy levels on the day? Were you okay?
Yeah, but I think I was all right because, our daughter was only young and I was determined that no matter what happened, I would, put on that happy face for her. But there were definitely things that I just had to push through. It's like I'm exhausted. Yeah, and I think a lot of it was that mental mind fuck that goes on with that. I certainly had the what have I done moments.
Yeah. What have I done? What have I missed? How could I do this to myself?
Yeah.
All of those things.
Even the not being able to have the family punch and, missing out on those things that were sort of the set in stone stuff when we were growing up. And sitting there watching other people enjoying it, and I knew that I couldn't because I knew how sick I would get if I did. So I just went, I'm not doing that. Yeah, it was really difficult.
It must have been different for you because I'm just sort of reflecting back, and you were still in the throes of having Christmas with
everyone,
with like the extended people that we don't associate with now.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, that was done and dusted. I was not doing that anymore when it came to we've moved, and we've moved intentionally to the other end of the country to be away from the dysfunction. I mean, of course, it was a multi-pronged decision. You don't move that far just for one thing. But I had 6 Christmases, I think, away from all of that. It must have been very hard.
Well, because I was certainly getting the, oh, why aren't you eating? And everyone that was there knew I didn't hide in my surgery. They all knew that I'd had surgery, but they
did have the surgery. It was a business.
But they didn't want to accept the fact that I wasn't eating and almost took it as a personal slight. And so they weren't even the ones that prepared the food.
So how would you, because of recent times, we have been in a position with food again with one of those people who there was clearly an issue, but less food was being eaten. You, in the position that you're in now, knowing what you know now, how would you address comments like that now?
I guess depending on who it was,
Absolutely, I feel the same way.
But it would be somewhere between making a joke out of it and I'd probably say something like, "Hey, you're just jealous that you can't control yourself." Through to, you know what, this is none of your business, and I'm not talking about it with you. So somewhere in between those extremes, I would definitely do the, you know, I don't care what you think. And I would wear the fall out from that quite happily because that is actually how I feel now. I don't care what people think. And if they don't want to associate with me because of that, then that is fan-fucking-tastic. Yeah, bring that on. Because I guess I'm done with trying to tiptoe around people to make them feel better about themselves. And yeah, if it takes me to make that person feel better, well, that's a them problem.
It is. It's an inside job on their behalf.
Yeah, I'm not responsible for someone else's feelings.
No. I mean, I guess from my perspective, it would probably be, and the way that I do respond to people when I'm out, when I'm in work situations, all of those things, I never discuss the portions that I eat. And if someone comes into my home, if it's one of my kids' friends or someone that I haven't eaten out with before and they don't know about my surgery, I may just say, I eat a small diet, it's a medical requirement.
Yeah.
And I leave it at that. If people continue asking questions, and they're polite questions, I'll just say, I've had a metabolic procedure and my nutrition requirements are quite small. And then I leave it at that.
And if they can't get the message after
they continue with that, I just say, I'm minding my own plate and I really appreciate it if you would do the same. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And if they still don't stop, I say, why don't you just fuck off?
And you know what, I think that's all right. You say those warning shots.
Yes.
Yeah. And if they're too ignorant to realise what you're saying or, you know, what you're trying to get at, if they're not picking it up, then, you know, sometimes you just need to be blunt. And that's life, hey.
Unfortunately, I think for some of us, we do have those difficult dynamics and difficult family relationships. I think most people, if you just if you just sort of paint that picture of, I've had a procedure, my nutrition requirements are small, and then you just don't talk about it anymore, you just keep moving on or don't draw attention to it, then most people do just leave it alone. That's been my experience.
I think that's an important thing, is we also need to take some personal responsibility with that. And if we don't want people asking questions, then we shouldn't be bringing it up. You know, I wish I could eat that. I could never fit that in. Well, why?
Yeah. Just don't mention it. Like if it's not something that you're wanting to talk about, then it's really, really easy to gloss over. Obviously, if it's a situation where you're comfortable and you would like to talk about it, then, you know, all bets are off, totally different scenario. But some of us can have those difficult relationships within our families, and it can feel very, very emotionally charged and confronting to be asked questions, particularly when everybody's standing around going, oh, it's going to happen now. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But as far as as far as dietary restrictions go, Christmas time or during the holidays, party season, New Year's, all of those things. One of the easiest things I think to do is disguise how much you are or aren't eating. I think it can be quite simple. If it's not a sit down, it's not like an actual sit down dinner or lunch or whatever, then you can just put food onto your plate and walk around and just swirl the food around every now and then. So those that might be interested in what you're eating see that the plate looks a bit different. It's the oldest Barry trick in the book.
Something that I think I realised, there were certainly times when I would go to a party expecting there to be awkward questions.
Sure.
And in some ways, I probably had a hand in the awkwardness happening.
Yeah.
If I hadn't just realised that no one actually gave a flying fuck, then it would have been much easier. Yeah, and I think that is true for a lot of situations. And yeah, we might be doing things that draw attention to ourselves with that. And, just go to these events, determine that you're going to have fun.
Yeah, have a great
without food, or with a smaller amount. And if you're going around talking to people and you're laughing and having a great time, then generally everyone just goes along with that. If you know that you're going to an event where it's going to be awkward, and don't go. We're adults. We can choose to go, or we can choose not to go. And people might get pissed off. I will. If they ring you for rings, don't answer the phone.
I don't understand wanting to ever make issue. But that's definitely a me thing. I'd rather peace than problems. And don't like to put myself in situations where there might be awkwardness or whatever. So I would definitely, if I was feeling extremely nervous or extremely worried about a situation, and there was, good reason for that, then I would seriously err on the side of, maybe I'll just stay home. But in saying that, sometimes it's difficult with different family dynamics, and we don't want to upset and whoever, and we
definitely understand that.
Yeah.
We may have effect of those difficult family dynamics.
Oh yeah, we do.
And sometimes you do feel like you're trapped in that.
Yeah. But we're only ever as trapped as we feel. We can just choose to walk away to protect our peace, to not allow that dynamic to be something that feeds into anxiety and feeds into all of those different emotions that, like, I can honestly say, and I think we said this on the last podcast, but some of the gorging that happened at Christmas for us was 100% because everybody was triggered. Everybody. So, it's really good to understand the situation that you're going into and, look after yourself accordingly. One of the things that first Christmas presented to me was the opportunity to try pavlova for the first time post. Yes, but that was a terrible idea. My hot Barry tip for you is whatever it is that you're planning to eat on Christmas Day, make sure you try it beforehand and see how you go. Don't put yourself in the position, we said this last time, don't put yourself in the position of feeling sick and unwell on the day, because that makes everything feel worse.
Yep.
When it comes to being in those actual situations, understand too that the people that we're celebrating with, the people that we're with, are used to a different version of us.
Yeah.
And we all will process that differently. I'm probably on the side of let people get used to how I am now. I know with some family members that they've had differing reactions to the way that I am now, as opposed to how I used to be. And I've decided that in most circumstances, I've had a longer period of time to get used to how I am now. So if someone hasn't seen you for 6 months and then they see you and you're looking very different, or your food choices are very different, and they make a comment, it may not necessarily be a bad one, or it may not be coming from a bad place. Sometimes it is. Sometimes people are just assholes. Let's be honest. They are. Sometimes yeah. But we can also make things a bit easier on ourselves by, I don't know, and I did do this. I did post a few photos and things on social media so that people knew what to expect when they saw me. So they weren't going, oh, what's happened to you? And I found that was a good way to break the ice. Another thing that we've talked about before, I suppose, Damo, is making sure that people understand what we will and won't be able to eat. If you're going into a situation where you're unsure if there'll be appropriate things for you, then perhaps just take your own.
Yeah.
You know, don't allow it to be that issue. Expect that you might feel sad on the day because you can't eat all of your most favourite things. That's how I feel every time, even now, every time I walk past the Cadbury chocolate almonds at Coles. And it's not that I can't have them, because I could choose to have them. I could also choose to shit my soul out for the next 5 hours after having them. So I really choose that, and I choose to walk past. Does it make me sad? Yes, it does at times, but we move on. We move past that. So making new traditions, like the chocolate almonds, represent the past. And this beautiful beach walk represents the Tash that I am now. Sometimes I would like to merge the two.
Have chocolate almonds while you're walking on the beach?
Yes, we're walking on the beach. But the problem with that is that we would then need to be very close to the loo. So,
and the same sort of thing with alcohol. If you haven't had anything like that to drink leading up to Christmas, take it slow.
Yeah,
if you're going to have a drink, because it really can hit so differently.
Actually, Nutrition for Weight Loss Surgery on Instagram have posted a few things about alcohol. And I would really recommend, if you are a bariatric person, that you look up as many resources as you can around how alcohol can affect us post-bariatric surgery.
Yeah.
It does hit differently, and you can find yourself affected, particularly with the bypass, affected really quickly, and then the effect or the feeling goes away really fast. But it doesn't mean that your blood alcohol level is then normal.
Yeah.
So you can be in a world of hurt.
We actually had a very brave member in our Facebook group that posted about this.
Yeah.
And it was quite an emotional sort of post. And I really appreciated the bravery in posting about that.
Yeah, and the candor.
Yeah.
My goodness.
And it is something that we need to be aware of. You know, we've all been there where we've gone to a party or something and you don't plan on having an alcoholic drink, but then maybe you do end up having one. We need to make sure that we're doing it safely.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And so planning those things out and knowing how you may respond.
Making sure you've had food, before you have a drink like that. Obviously, leaving the time in between and everything. But there are things that we all know we should do, and I think that's important that we just remember those tips.
Yeah. So I think really the things for me to be aware of for that very first Christmas post bariatrics is not putting yourself in a position to fail or feel like you're failing. Not putting yourself in a position that's going to be triggering emotionally, because it's really important to stay in a good place and not. Yeah.
And here's the other thing that I think is important. You might decide to just absolutely splurge and eat anything you can get your hands on. It's one day.
Yeah.
You don't have to look at that as, oh my God, I failed. No, you lived your life.
Yeah, that's right. You're a person that lived your life.
That is okay. Just, we don't want to do that every day.
Yeah. But also, even in that, even in saying all of that, on Christmas Day, there's unique challenges that do come up post bariatrics. And like Damo said, it is just one day. It's one day. Navigating the month of December, all the parties, all of those things, you can expect to feel out of place.
Yeah.
You can expect to feel different.
Yep.
And some of us will even be treated differently by family and friends because maybe we don't eat like we used to, and that used to make others feel quite comfortable. Or maybe we don't drink as much as we once did, and that's different as well. So if you do feel those things or feel that way, it's okay to just have a little moment, have a little pause, ask yourself, okay, well, am I being left out in this situation, or is this just how I feel because things have changed a bit for me? And we just start making new traditions, new ways of interacting with people, going out more now than what I did previously. I think it's fantastic. I love spending time with my friends and with my family when I'm out.
Yes.
It's wonderful. When food is not the object of my desire, and it's connection with other people. That's just become such a powerful thing. So I also did go through a grief where how will my social life be? How will things look? And that's a process that we have to all work out for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not just a run and done. It's not a quick fix. So you're not alone. Because we've definitely walked that path before, and it does get better.
Yeah.
And easier.
Yeah. And every year it gets better.
Yeah, it does.
And then one day you wake up and you realise that you've built a new normal.
Yeah. And oh, wow, I didn't even think about the fact that I've had bariatric surgery, which I know might seem just impossible.
Yeah.
But it just becomes, like Damo said, your new normal is such a way of life that, hey, like it's not even an issue anymore.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
today.
thank you.
I really enjoyed this one, and
Me
it's great
too.
to do a follow-up. Have a safe week, and we will see you again soon.
And enjoy your holiday parties.